Siri, where can I find my apps?
I am searching, but I can't find them.
I don't know them that take disrespect. I'm so one of them here got some. Number one girl is your family them. Number one girl is not my friend them. Also boy want this coachman and a hide. Pussy on a coward. They're bad man and one fuck. You see one thing? Pussy them free and them too much. Rich madness. Big up one of the money maker them forward out in a big break. How big up? Whoa!
Blessed the people. Welcome back. You see me? So peeps, today we'll be talking about a dancehall entertainer whom, in my opinion, had the opportunity to make millions of dollars, as also he had the opportunity to be like the next Bounty Killer or Vybz Kartel in a dancehall, because this entertainer started out as a young artist, and before he was even fully established, he was bringing other artists to the forefront with him. This entertainer that I'm talking about is none other than Squash. Yes, people, that same artist from down in Montego Bay. He had the opportunity to take his career, dancehall music on a whole different level, because he got his breakout with a music group that he named The Six. And trust me, the lovers of dancehall and reggae music gravitated to his style and gravitated to the group that he was building. And I mean, people like the idea of The Six thing, and it was working. Artists like Chronic get them break from The Six, you know what I mean? As a matter of fact, it is also said that Rygin King, who got a bigger break before Squash, was also a part of Squash system too. You know what I mean? The same 16 before it was even established. You know, you have Chronic, you know what I mean, one of the most lyrical artists in a dancehall right now. You know, artists like Daddy One, you know, Javilani used to be around The Six, and quite a few other artists used to be around them, Bobby Six and so on, same way. But you know, people, sometimes in life you have to choose what you want to be. You want to be great or you want to be good. You get me? I say you can be a good artist, an okay artist, or you want to be a legend, somebody great. Whenever you're getting a breakout in any field, especially entertainment, that's the decision that you have to make. You have to make a choice. You can't be both. It can't be that you want to be a legend and you want to be a bad man at the same time. If you want to be a good artist, an average artist, and be a bad man and anything can reach you, well, fine. You know what I mean? More than likely, you're going to end up losing life or go to prison. There's a people, and that's the reason why we're taking a look into Squash's music career. Because Squash is one of those artists whom, in my opinion, had the potential to become a real column in dancehall. He does not lack in talent any at all, people. You know what I mean? And he created an image for himself. You see me? Most time people don't really take on to people like Squash, and him short and him kind of chubby. But Squash created that as an image, and you know, people look up to him, and he was loved by the supporters of dancehall and reggae music because they really like his musical content. Squash did not want to be great, in my opinion. You know, Squash wanted to be good, you know, and wanted to be a bad man. So we're gonna take a little look at his musical journey, as also we're gonna take a look at his legal troubles. So people, Andre Whitaker, better known by his stage name Squash, is a Jamaican dancehall entertainer from Salt Spring, Montego Bay, in the parish of St. James. And in case you're wondering where the name Squash come from, you know, Squash, there's a fruit that is named Squash, as also a racket sport that is named Squash also. Yes, people, that sport is played with something like a tennis racket and a rubber ball, you know what I mean? And you hit the ball against the wall, you know what I mean? It's played by two persons competing, you know? I don't really know the rules of that sport, but he could have named himself Squash because he thinks he's taking off like a rocket, you know what I mean? Or he likes to squash people around. I don't know if he likes the fruit by that name, Squash. However, his name is Squash. And as I said, he's from one of the more violent areas of St. James, Montego Bay. You know what I mean, people? Salt Spring, you know. Salt Spring is home to the G City gang. You know, that gang was headed by his brother, who was sometime cut down by the police. And he has also had other brothers who were involved and ended up losing their life. A brother named G-Man, you get me, I say, end up losing life and so on and so forth. So a whole heap of things go on. So I say people, and Squash, you know, as a young man, has always been interested in music, but you know, the area of St. James that he's from, you know, is dominated by persons who do lots of scamming, you know what I mean? So once you're from that area and you start to do a little thing and you start to drive a certain car, you know, say most times it's the scamming game that gets these people up there and out there, money-wise. So Squash been around, you know what I mean? When his brother died, he is one that came out on Facebook and made some comments publicly that police should die and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? A post was made. But a lot of persons did not really know him or know of him like that. But you know, sometimes someone lose them family member, you know, them feel some type of way, them come out and them say some things impulsively and you come back to end up haunt them in the future. So you know, Squash is a youth, him always a doing music and so on, but him name always a call it not a little mix up thing, you know what I mean? War and killing business and them something. You see the badness thing, which is normally associated with an individual who is from a particular area, especially if you are a standout individual and violence and violent crimes are prevalent in that area. So you growing up in that area, you know all these things, you know the likely backlashes that you will face as a person who intends on becoming a recording artist, knowing your history. So Squash thing I grow as a musician, I sing him song them, you know. Him not really get out there, but Squash been at the music for some time. You know, it was in the 2016s that his music started to really pick up some traction. You know, them time there, Squash give strength to other artists, such as Relocation King. You know, Relocation King get a bigger breakout before Squash. But Squash still doing music and still got through. And he was basically relevant in his community and in the Montego Bay area and Hanover, Westmoreland side. Most persons from that end were already familiar with him and his music, but you know his music needed to travel to other places. But you know people, he might go on and he might do him thing. You see me? Him start to drop a whole heap of song, you know, people start to gravitate to him song them, you know what I mean? Him have a song with him trending. So you know people start to gravitate to his music and him thing go on. But you know what I mean? Because of the flare up of violence in the Montego Bay area, and there was a state of emergency in Montego Bay. You know, Squash was detained because he was from an area that a lot of crime was being committed and he was being identified as one of the violent producers, you know what I mean? Somebody who considered himself to be a Don based on the fact that his brother was the Don for that area. So he basically inherited that title. So you know, he was associated with death and destruction. So during the state of emergency, he was picked up and he spent some extensive time in custody, in police custody. And this was when his music actually took off. Yeah man, Squash music bust a road whilst he was in jail. So the music that he was doing started to blow up whilst he was in jail. Yeah man, Squash thing blew up bigger road and everybody was starting to anticipate his return. And I mean his freedom to the street, because I mean he was not actually charged, but he was detained in the state of emergency for an extensive period of time because he was identified as a violent producer. So Squash, you know what I mean, him spent a good time in there. So when Squash eventually ended up getting released from custody and was back on the street again, Squash basically had a crown waiting for him out there. Yeah, people, Squash thing bigger road when him come road, you see me? Him thing I go on, him boss, you know what I mean? Whole heap of show him start do, him start sing more hit songs, you know what I mean? Him sing a whole heap of gun and violent lyrics. But a lot of artists sing violent music, but you know, Squash I want to sing a whole heap of violence. So Squash thing I go on, you know what I mean? Him music I go on, you know, people love him, and all he needed to do was to do music and keep it music. But you know, instead of keeping it music, Squash put himself in a position where his name was still being associated with criminality and crime. And that is one of the main reasons why he had to run away from Jamaica, because of the kind of people who he was associating himself with. He was associating himself with pure violence producers. So there was a point now where he was called out by a vlogger for being associated with a music producer who was also a Don man from in Montego Bay, you know what I mean, who was also responsible for a lot of killings. And the same vlogger that exposed them was the vlogger who made it known that his brother, you know what I mean, G-Man, was actually set up by that producer who was his brethren, you know what I mean, yeah, for him to lose his life. And then, you know, people, that started a little bit of rift internally between him and his friends. Eventually, Squash leave Jamaica. And the fact that Squash leave Jamaica, one would think that yes, him leave Jamaica and him gone, so him finish with the violence now, him done with that. Him don't want to have no more association with anything like that. Him have to turn a new page, focus on his music and building his career. based on all the animosity that was going around, and I mean, Squash ended up leaving and him overseas and him a do him thing. But you know, people, when Squash eventually took off overseas, you know, he was held onto by ICE, you know I mean, the immigration enforcement, because he had overstayed his work permit, you know I mean, he was in custody and he eventually came out. And that's how it is. You can seek asylum, or if you get married and your paperwork's put in, you know, they will eventually give a bail and give a time for your thing for work out. So it don't necessarily mean that man have to go say him a gay man or say him a this or say him a that. You see what I say? It can be simply that, you know what I mean? But he was back out on the street and he was doing his thing. But you know, people like Squash choose to keep toxic persons around all the time. You know what I mean? There was a situation where there was a blatant murder. 2 men were murdered, you know what I mean, people. And you know, and it is alleged that those persons who committed that murder was working on behalf of Squash. And it is also been alleged that the men who were killed, they and Squash were involved in some business that did not go down too well, and hence him sending friend them go kill them. So imagine you're in Jamaica, Montego Bay, where problem is. You leave and you go Kingston, problem same way. And you leave and go all the way in America. Over there you have the opportunity to stay by yourself and hold your own. Over there stuff, you don't have to involve with nobody, and you don't have to involve in no foolishness, because me know how Florida and them places stay. Whenever you're going out, all you need to do is employ security. You don't need to have no bag of man on you or try to prove this or prove that. So the issue is not necessarily security. As a matter of fact, the issue is not necessarily even loyalty. The issue is a man try to prove say him a bad man and that not go nowhere. Where that I go put you? That not go put you nowhere at all. That's the issue where a man try to prove say him a bad man and him a the baddest man and him have some man run him from Mobile, you know what I mean? Because a lot of persons choose to run over the border of Mexico and end up in America, you know what I mean? Them know how to get around and them find themselves which part in there. Him and them are roll same way. So them not really get no legal entry in America, you know. Them just run across the border and them go in. Some of them get held by immigration, some don't get held. But however, them find themselves in the country and them have the toxic people them around him and I create the same problem that he was running from in Jamaica. People listen, over there so, an artist don't need to have a bag of man around him. An artist just need to spend him money to employ security because it's even cheaper. Over them places, you pay money. So depending on the caliber of artist you are, you employ that amount of security. So if you know you need 5 security or 6 security for the night or wherever you're going, you employ security. People actually at work and you pay them. But some of the artists feel like they're supposed to go out. In modern days now, you know what I mean, with social media and so on and so forth, with this one whole heap of man, because some of these men are known to be violence producers. So that man a bad man from this and him their own, that the man a bad man from this and him their own. That will work out. If you're going on the road, all you need to have is proper security. The illegal going on the illegal something that make no sense. It only gonna get you in a problem. And that is exactly what Squash did. So him over foreign and him thing a go on. Squash still a release hit music, but him still try to keep toxic and stupid people around him. And that is what eventually led to him being in custody in America right now. Yeah man, Squash in a federal custody right now. And that is because of his own undoing. And I mean people's own stupidity got him there. And we're going to look a bit into this story as it relates to how he was pinned and got caught with this gun. You know what I mean people? It was a setup, straight up. The police them are watching people because in America, if you know, police don't just randomly check vehicle like that. You have to be somebody who they have zoomed in on and they are carrying out a certain level of investigation around you. So we're going to take a look at that situation in which Squash was caught in a vehicle in Miami, Florida with a cheap Glock in him clothes. Yes, people. The police them actually even see that. Squash along with one of his friends were traveling in a Mercedes Benz in the Miami area when the police had pulled them over for a road traffic violation. When the police pulled him over, you know, Squash had a firearm in his waist in an holster, but he removed the firearm from his waistband and put the firearm in the glove compartment of the vehicle. And the driver of the motor vehicle also had a firearm on his person, but he removed that firearm and placed it under the driver's seat. The police pulled up to them. The police inquired if any firearm was on board, and the driver of the motor vehicle said no. But however, he had consented to the vehicle being searched. So the police carried out a search at the vehicle and recovered the chip Glock that Squash had in the glove compartment, and also a Glock 40 that the other person was traveling with was under the driver's seat. The driver of the motor vehicle was also driving on a suspended driver's license. Just to show you people, why would you want to get yourself into that? Remember, you know the situation that you're coming from. You know you don't want to come back to the situation, but why would you put yourself in that? The police had already known that the firearms were in the vehicle because the person that gave the firearm to Squash was under surveillance by an undercover police. You know what I mean? So the police actually saw when that individual who they had under their surveillance and that firearm to Squash. So the police them know say them have the firearm in the vehicle. So the police them just watch them. You see what I say? And eventually pull them over. Boom, artist charged for gun. And this is now the time when Donald Trump is taking a zero tolerance approach to violent criminals being in America. Even person who innocent get deported same way. So think about it, people. Squash is now in the custody of the US immigration. You know what I mean? He was granted bail on the gun charge, but he's now in the custody of the US immigration. So people, what you have to understand about guns in Florida. Florida is a place where everybody have one gun. Everybody you see, just tell yourself say they have one gun at their waist. I just saw them a place to stay. But it's a type of firearm that you have that is going to make a big difference. So you can find yourself in prison for many years for doing any alteration on that firearm. And in this case, this was a chip Glock. They had modified this firearm with a switch on it so you can fire automatic. You know what I mean? There is where the big problem comes in for him. So I'm saying, why would you know the rules and try to break the rules? If you think you need a firearm to protect yourself, right? Nothing is wrong with having a firearm to protect yourself if you think you're going to need it. Why you always have to try to break the law whilst doing that? Why you couldn't just have an ordinary firearm on your person or in your vehicle just for your personal protection? Why you want to break the law to have a chip Glock where you're not supposed to have? And that's why I said, everybody's trying to be extra and trying to go the extra mile and do some things that is totally irrelevant. It's basically for the hype and it gets you nowhere except in problems. So peeps, you know, I could sit here and I could talk for the entire day about the stupidity of this entertainer. You know what I mean? And the reason why I am addressing this entertainer is because I saw the potential that this entertainer had to be a giant in dancehall. If only he had chosen to take the right path. It's still not too late for him to change. But at the end of the day, when you get yourself in too deep, some of the times it is very hard to get yourself out. Because learn this, you know, them say badness are one way in and no way out. It's either you go dead or you go to prison. So what this artist should have done from earlier in his career was disassociate himself from certain stupidness. Anyways, those are my views for now. You know, you can leave your reviews in the comment section, as also you can like, you can subscribe, and you can share. Peace.
Lift it up.
Hey Siri, where can I find my apps?
I am searching, but I can't find them.
Yeah, big brain. What a plug. Me are looking at the buff run. That's up. Money pull up. Blood black girl. 6 bars on time. Whatever time goes, gun it up. Nigga, what you talking about? Swagger on it. Oh, chunk, I can't fuck it in a. Whoa, beast, that's the evidence. Big brain. I know we can't see them. I know we can't see them. Yeah, we are searching them like zero white pants and up with Joan. Outside, now see them. Blast! Don't play with me. We are still. They don't be trying to put together. We outside. What is it? I don't know them to take disrespect. I'm so one of them here got some. Remember what kind of family them. Remember what kind of stuff my friend them. Also boy want this much for them to hide. Pussy will not coward. They're bad but they don't want to go. You see one thing? Pussy them free and them too much. Rich madness. Money and scam killer. But that's not anybody with it. Jamaica, they forward out in a big break. Hold me go, whoa! That's up. Why you all wanna talk about?
I we know that the road.
Why you all wanna talk about the white lady? I you know that do. Why you know what it is best spark up?
Put it in a bowl.
Your girlfriend came just as much, she are your dad. Me can't see her them for some.
What we there?
What we there?